Hello and welcome to this episode of Enterprise Unplugged, our career path journeys. I'm Laura Burrell, and today on our second podcast on career paths, we're going to be speaking to General Sales Manager for Exertis Enterprise, Jonnie Ray.
Hi.
Hi, Jonnie, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm all good. So the purpose of these career paths episodes is to get to know you a little bit, of course, but to get to know where you started and your journey through the company. So I suppose first question would be, what did you do before you started with Exertis?
What did I do? Probably very much a 101 kind of youth, I guess. You know, went through the education system, went to university, got a degree, went travelling.
Nice.
And then came back needing to get some work. Interestingly enough, I suppose, I actually started at Hammer before I went travelling. Which I don't count as my 21 odd years.
Oh, okay. Unofficial start date then.
Unofficial start date, yeah. And I did 6 months there as a sales support.
Okay.
You know, earning the money to go travelling. Went off for 6-8 months around Australia and Thailand and all the usual places, I guess.
Amazing. So were you straight out of uni into sales support then?
Yeah, straight out of uni, pretty much got a job at Hammer. I just went for a job, and Hammer came up. So I did that knowing that I wanted to earn some good money to go off travelling. Came back and actually applied for a job at Hammer first of all when I came back.
Okay.
And got told, no, you'll never make a salesperson.
Okay. That comment didn't age particularly well.
No, I've done all right.
I've done all right.
But whomever at the time didn't see that, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to name names.
But to say, don't name them publicly now, the witch hunt will start.
And so then probably spent about 6-8 months just doing temp jobs, eventually getting myself a job in recruitment, because I kind of realised I wanted to be in sales. I did a degree in sport and leisure management.
Okay.
Because I had an interest in business, but also sport. I used to play tennis for the county when I was younger.
Okay.
So I always wanted to be involved in running a tennis facility. So I knew I needed management skills and sports skills. And then as part of my degree, I did a placement in David Lloyd near my university. And really enjoyed it, but got to meet the area sales manager and realised that there isn't particularly much earning potential in that area of the market. So when I came back, decided I wanted a job in sales, which did not go down too well with my dad, having paid for a 3-year university degree. But actually, if I'm honest with you, the majority of the degree it's probably 50-50 around the sport element and around management. So I would argue I have used my degree. He's got over it now.
Yeah, is he? Is he all right?
He's all right now, yeah. He didn't speak to me for a year.
Really?
No.
My goodness. Well, the thing is, nobody's degree is like you go through the education system, you have to pick a subject, but you're not you can't really commit yourself at that age to sort of picking a subject and go, I'm going to stick to this for life. And you just sort of pick something like you did that you can apply to a number of careers. And you have, and sort of on that journey, sales appealed to you. What appealed to you about sales?
Honestly, money.
Yeah, that's fair.
Honestly, it was money. You know, I always had a keen interest in business. I didn't really, not wanting to do the tennis thing anymore due to the financial element. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I had a few friends that worked at Hammer at the time, and they were doing okay for themselves. So I thought, well, you know, go and follow that. Probably didn't thinking it was a forever career, but I'll go and do sales, earn some money, get a house, go from there, kind of thing. And obviously, like I say, that didn't work out with them not offering me the position. So I went off, it's quite a funny story because during that period, Steve Cowley got made sales manager.
Right.
For those that don't know, Steve Cowley is our current director for Europe for sales. And he called up the recruitment company I was working for, not knowing I was working there, to ask for potential staff.
Okay.
So I recruited myself a job and left that day.
Amazing. So he says, have you got anyone? Yeah, me, I'll do
basically,
it. And you're out the door.
And I got up and left.
And never looked back?
Yep.
Amazing. That is a good story on how you got the job, certainly. So you started as account manager, I'm guessing?
Yeah. So obviously I, started in sales support originally and then I spent 6 months doing that sales support job, really understanding what the salespeople were doing. That was another reason. I thought, but whilst I was travelling, I thought, I've seen what they do. I could do that. So yeah, started as an account manager. Again, probably went into a very, very early version of the academy where we sat in a room and they were teaching us. I think there were 5 of us at the time, but myself and a lad, Anthony Brown, that worked and I lived with for a while actually. I think on day 2 we said, can we just go and start making some phone calls? And Steve went, yeah, okay. So sort of dive straight into it really.
Right. Bypass the how to sell teaching.
And I think, at that point I just liked the whole wheeler dealer side of it. It's a bit different. Sales probably was more salesy. Back then you could get away with it being a little bit more salesy. So I had my white collar, white cuff, thinking I'm in the middle of London, feet up on the desk.
Basingstoke, centre of the
getting
world.
told to take my feet down off the desk.
Oh, really?
And just got straight into sales, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so we've spoken about what drew you to sales, and you mentioned sort of 20 odd years. So how many
21
years?
in November.
21
since
in
I
November.
came back, it'll be 23 since I first started.
Wow, 21 years.
Yeah.
So starting on the phones, is that something you enjoyed, talking to customers?
I loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, probably come to it, I run the academy now. And I can always tell, I think, who's going to make it because you either enjoy that or you don't. It's either a chore or a passion. And I just, for me, I was thinking, what, they're paying me to just speak to people. I can do this. I had my friends out there in the pouring rain putting up scaffolding.
I get to chat for a living.
Well, basically, yeah. And I was thinking, so I was thinking, well, I can definitely do this. And weirdly enough, because I was probably quite shy as a kid, I found I could do it. Spent a fair amount of time. I think I look back my CV. I'll probably give you dates and stuff that are completely wrong, but I think I did sales for about 3 years. But I worked through that and managed to get myself to Premier status in 17 months, which I think is still the fastest in the history of the company.
Amazing.
Phil, obviously my boss, did it in I think 19 months, and it still haunts him to this day.
Oh, you got 2 months on him,
It
Jonnie.
gets brought up consistently when I need to win an argument.
Phil, if you're watching, sorry that this is now public knowledge and you shared it with everybody.
He'll love the fact that I've shared that with everyone.
Yeah, you just couldn't get through the conversation without everybody knowing. You got 2 months on Phil.
But obviously, I guess that means I sort of took to it and enjoyed the position, yeah.
So you were in sales for 3 years.
Something like that, yeah.
What did you do after?
So it was a strange scenario. I sort of mentioned to you when we had a pre-chat, right? I've done a lot of jobs here, and I sort of seem to have fallen into each one. Because my success in sales, we talk to salespeople now about replication, right? If you're doing well there, don't then go off and try something, go and exhaust that area of the market because you can become a specialist. And I've always been a very keen snowboarder. So Sony at the time came in with a promotion of, we're going to take everyone's snowboarding, skiing, whatever, if you can sell the most of this product, which was, I think, memory stick at the time that you used to put in your CyberShot cameras, I think.
Oh, okay, so camera memory.
Yeah, but it was their compact flash. It was their version of compact flash, USB stick, SD card. So I really wanted to go snowboarding. So I went home and found every single person on the internet selling it, and within a few weeks, I think, I smashed my target by about 16,000% or something.
Whoa.
Then, and then obviously I realised that a lot of these other companies are doing compact flash and USB and hard drives and all these kind of things. So I just sort of really cornered that area of the market, which is probably why I ended up doing quite well. I think to the point where at one point I had something like a 90% market share in the UK for Kingston, who are still our memory brand today, myself. And that led into me proactively putting together a proposal to Hammer at the time, the business, to say, can I have 4 members of staff that I'll get doing the same thing?
Just dedicated to
do that.
Okay.
So they said, yeah. So in full circle, I suppose I was in management. Then after 3 years, I had 4 or 5 staff. One of them still works today. Doug Dickinson was one of those employees. Still works with us today. but the timing of it wasn't really great. And I think with more experience, I know that now. I think at the time the directors allowed me to make that mistake because it was when all that was becoming far more popular. The internet was really growing in terms of availability of pricing online, which we all used to now. So the margins available, the profit you could make was being stripped out of it. So eventually, I think 6 months, let's say, we did okay. But we decided to put those 4 people into the general sales population. Okay. And I said, well, what am I going to do? I've not got any accounts now. You know, I'd fed them out to the team. Yeah. So they said, well, can you move into commercial and manage all of those brands that you know commercially? So to assist all of the sales team. So yeah, did that, and then spent, I think, 7 or 8 years in commercial looking after all sorts of brands. I think I worked out I BDM'd about 24 brands across that period.
Amazing. That's a lot of brands to do with sort of connectivity, memory, that sort
do you know what? It spanned right the way out to the point where eventually I was launching Dell OEM across the UK and Europe as a sole. That I had one at that point. Okay. But it was nice. I think, you know, I always had that energy to go and make the most of it, and do, you know, I've kind of always had this thing with anything I do that I can't do things half-hearted.
Got to go all in.
Yeah,
go big or go home.
Well, my brain doesn't allow me to. I'm either doing something or I'm not. Yeah. Which clearly, you know, I at the time I didn't see, but you know, the business, obviously, I guess a business would like that. Someone who's passionate and dedicated to do that. So, well,
the fact that you're still here 21 years later probably shows that Hammer Exertis Enterprise do quite like that.
Yeah, either that or they can't get rid of me.
Yeah,
one of the two. But no, I think you know, as where I sit today, that's the kind of attributes I would look for in someone who's passionate and, you know, maybe makes mistakes, but with the right intentions and with good work ethic. So it was always, well, can you look after this one now? Can you look after that one now? And then eventually I hired a junior BDM to work under me because I think at the time I was BDMing 14 vendors. So I said, well, I need some help. And then, you know, that sort of ever flow of can you do this one, can you do that one, turned into can you go and do Dell OEM.
Okay.
Which we did pretty well with in the first year and got it going. I think we got it from sort of 0 to 5 million in the first year. And that involved a lot of flying because I was doing Europe at the time as well. So generally in Heathrow at 6 a.m. most weeks, at least once. Oh wow! Which was great at the time. I can't think of anything worse now.
No, just think all those flights.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I think I started to get a bit bored of that when my child turned up because I didn't want to be off in Europe. I wanted to be at home with him. So that all sort of came to, I think the business realised I was getting a bit, maybe tired is the word.
I think it's not sustainable long term,
exactly.
Is it? I mean, it's exciting at first. I'm travelling on business.
Well, you tell your friends you're going to all these cool cities. I didn't see the cities. I saw a hotel room and an airport. Yeah. So you're not really that. I mean, there's a few times where I would try and get out in the evening, but it's more exciting than it sounds, for sure. Yeah,
I can imagine the glamour of it wearing off quite quickly.
Very quickly.
To be at home.
Okay. Definitely. So at that point, Paul Matravers, who was the sales director, said, "Do you want to go be a sales manager?" So I said, yeah, because it fitted at the time, right? Because it was UK based. I was looking after a UK sales team. Sure, a little bit of travel if I wanted to go and support a customer, but kind of on my own terms. So I guess that was that journey, yeah.
So did you find sort of like taking what you learned in commercial, did you get a better understanding of the wider business, bringing it back into sales management?
100%. I mean, I guess I'm cocky with it, but I don't mean it that way. I feel like I have quite a unique, there's a few, but quite a uniquely rounded view of this business. Well, yeah. Because I've spent years in sales and commercial and management. Yeah. And I do think, you sit in commercial yourself, right? I do, yeah. And obviously there is always this thing of what commercial want against sales and what sales want against commercial. It's our job is to tie that together. Yeah, but making sure the goals are aligned. Of course, but essentially you've got your goals in commercial and they should align, but come on, this is not a utopia, right? So we sometimes have to try and make them align. So I think me understanding both sides of that wall is a benefit. Yeah,
it gives you a well-rounded view of the wider business as well, and everybody's goals. Fantastic. So, just referring back to my questions. So, in your current role, General Sales Manager.
Yep.
What does a normal day look like to you, or is there no such
thing? Do you know what? I guess there is and there isn't. It's one of those frustrating but good things that the higher you go in a business, no one comes to you really and says, "Hey, this is great." So a normal sales day to me is putting out fires, fixing problems, dealing with issues.
The woes of a manager.
Yeah, it is. I guess my real focus at the moment is around trying to upskill my management layer so that I don't have to deal, say this in the nicest possible way, with 50 odd people or whatever. I can try and deal with 3 or 4. Yeah. And make sure that I'm spending my time utilising that knowledge I have of the wider business and being long in the tooth and knowing this industry for 20 years, trying to use that skill set rather than just getting caught up in a million and one things.
It's very easy if you're caught up in the day-to-day to get that time to look at bigger picture stuff. And as you said, with your knowledge of the wider business and the fact that you've been here for so long, you've sort of got that unique way of looking at it, I suppose. And you can sort of look at the more overall managerial stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And I mentioned Phil, sales director of the business, obviously my direct superior. He's consistently saying to me, "Why are you getting involved in that?" Why? Yeah. And it's a control thing, right? It's a control freak element that makes me successful, but I struggle to leave other people to do things.
Go to other people.
So a big skill I'm learning is to have trust and let someone else deal with that.
Yeah, letting things go.
And it shows that X amount of years in, you're always still learning.
Yeah.
Consistently. I think every few years that pass, I think, well, I pretty much know it all now. And then a few years pass, you think, no, you
didn't know it all.
Yeah, exactly. So I think having that open mind to the fact that you definitely don't know it all is probably part of my role, actually.
And what's great about the different types of role that you've done, I suppose, you're learning new different things sort of about strengths and things you want to improve on in each of those roles as you come through. So like you said, a few years ago, you might have thought, yeah, I knew everything. Maybe you didn't, but then maybe there's lessons learned that you can bring on sort of to the next role. And when you're teaching other people as well, whether it's people that report directly to you or sort of the wider sales floor.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely learn things in every role, or you should be open to learning things in every role and every day. But I think really the role I'm in today, I think I've enjoyed every role, right? As I said, I love the sales element. I enjoyed, having a little competition with the people around me, whoever gets the most deals this week. The other one buys them lunch, or just always making a game out of it. I'm a very competitive person, so I would make a game out of anything. I'm going to do more calls than you. I'm going to do more minutes. I'm going to bring on more accounts than you. I'm going to get to that number first, whatever. And actually done in a way where it benefits me and the people I'm competing with. Right, we all win. But then you've got the flip side of the coin that I don't get that now. Yeah. But I'm still regularly talking to customers and things like that, and talking to vendors and talking to commercial, and actually more importantly, I think, look, I've been here 21 years for a reason. I've had opportunities to leave, and I've always sort of stayed because, where it was Hammer, it was privately owned. A bit different now, obviously, but you felt like you were really part of that because it was their business. You were sat there with the people that owned it. It was their money every day, and it connects you in a way you wouldn't with a corporate organisation like Exertis.
Just larger organisations.
But of course, right? No, there's no owner really. I know there's the board and there's shareholders, but there's no owner of this business. But where we've been in it so long, I actually look at the job I'm in now that I can have a material impact on maintaining the legacy of something I've cared about for a long time. So I talk to my salespeople a lot that I am definitely invested in making this business a success. I care about it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I do like about, I suppose, the culture here is that you can tell people care about what they're doing and they're really invested in what they're doing as well, which just makes...
I think it's key. Believe in what you're selling. It's sales 101, right?
That's
and
very
if
true.
you don't, buy into what you're pushing, it's...
No one else is going to believe
No,
it.
exactly that, yeah.
That is very true. So you spoke a bit about Hammer as it was.
Yes.
And then Hammer then becoming part of Exertis. Well,
yes.
Exertis Enterprise, its own entity sort of under
Definitely.
Exertis. What were the big changes there when...
Lots.
We turned into Exertis Enterprise.
Yeah, lots. I think it was probably even more of a culture shock for me because at the time it was a slow transition. To begin with, we were owned by Exertis. That was it.
Okay.
Nothing changed. We had us and Exertis still competing for the same accounts. I mean, it was just they owned us, right? Then at one point down the line, we worked through the fact that we should make sure there's only one Exertis Enterprise account manager looking after each account, should that be in Ashwood or Wade Road where we used to be located. Then that transitioned into some people moving across here, right? And I was one of the last. So, one of my most enjoyable times in my whole career, actually, I think I had about a year where I was general manager of Wade Road, but Phil and Nick Brennan Carter had bought his lot over here and he was being GM over in Ashwood. And so I kind of, other than, Matt Croucher as financial director being there, I kind of had that world.
Yeah.
And having sort of been born there, essentially, it felt pretty cool actually to think this is kind of my world every day at the moment. And so it was a bit sort of inevitable but sad for me when I came over here initially because that really meant a lot to me. I always look back at that time. I was sat in the, our old sales director had the corner desk and so where do you want to sit? I want to go there and right because you've always looked up to this guy, right?
Yeah.
And you think I still have. He had this little Porsche paperweight. And when I cleared out his desk, I've never told him this, but when I cleared out his desk, I got rid of everything, but I kept that as a little, and I've still got it on my desk upstairs. So, yeah, I suppose, sentimentally, it was quite a nice year that, as my career. But then we all moved over here, and it was a bit of a shock to the system because, Hammer was definitely not corporate. So we had the whole thing of how loud we are, how brash we are. And so I've probably spent the last 2 years, as we've got 3 years, it might even be, as we got to this point of full integration, and I'm now, GM of the majority of that sales floor, really trying to strike what is a very, very difficult balance between maintaining the ethos and culture of what Hammer was within the confines of not just a corporate beast, but the modern world as well. It would have been different even over in Hammer today. The world has changed. So trying to maintain all those good bits and
whilst navigating the new
stuff. I've slipped the wrong side of it a couple of times. But generally, it's harder than you think, actually. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a hard balance because you don't want to lose that...
Identity?
Yeah, it's the identity, the fact that people are having fun but if it... I don't know, some people might see it as like boisterous or something like that, but if in a corporate environment, but it's
they've now built
balance.
A wall.
I know, I used to sit right next to the wall. I think so we've got a lovely wall and it's got pictures of some of our
Chloe.
Lovely colleagues on. And I don't know, was that supposed to block out the noise? Because it's not a soundproof wall.
No, I think generally that was, and I joke, it's probably a good idea because you think we're this boisterous sales floor and in reality we were put in the wrong area because we were right at the back next to finance and legal and probably the quietest
room, yes.
So I think there was a general consensus, not that it's a bad thing, that, we're off being boisterous, being sales, and I want a loud sales environment. When I walk in and it's a morgue, it kills me. But
when I come in, I know it's going to be a good day. When people are loud and they're on the phones, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
The days where we have, a vendor launch and everyone's in, certainly the sales guys I worked with for a long time, they know I love that.
Yeah,
I love that because I'm not a huge fan of the modern world and flexible working. I mean, I'm a fan of giving people flexibility in their lives hugely, but I like having a sales environment where people engage and talk and
if it's something that works as well.
Of course, yeah.
And so that I suppose that is what you've managed to, I think, maintain sort of the culture and the fun and sort of like you've got a great group of sales reps up there. so when you bought it into, I hesitate to say a corporate environment because it doesn't feel particularly corporate to me, but this is all I've known.
Compared to Hammer, it is a corporate environment, but we use that term like it's a bad thing. It is a corporation, right? It's not a privately owned business. So we can use that terminology, but not in being derogatory, I don't think.
Yeah, no, certainly not. It doesn't feel, Exertis Enterprise is all I've known since I've come into the business. I didn't know it as Hammer and Exertis as two separate entities. But it certainly doesn't feel stuffy or corporate or anything. I think we've still very much got the identity there.
Well, it's good to hear you say that. That's And I know Tom
I wouldn't
Cox,
still be working here if it was really stuffy.
I'm with you. That's the point. And I'm always a believer that you create robots, you get robots, and that's not what we want. So, how do you get people working within the confines of a structure and non-negotiables and things they need while still feeling free to have fun and express themselves? And, we always say to them, you would be, as a salesperson, should be viewing it as Laura Burrell Incorporated. It's your little business. You're given a phone and a laptop and this whole business around you, but you should care about it. It's not a job, it's a career.
Yeah.
And you should care about the service your business offers and the knowledge your business has and all these kind of things. And I think if you get that right, you get the right environment. But we do then obviously try and make sure we reward people with lunches and socials and things like the vendor prizes, they give. Yeah. I think there's a better word than that. Incentives, thank you, yeah. They're less than they were in the good old days. We used to have a lot of them. Honestly, I think I walked out with a telly under my arm 4 days a week back in the day. I'm kind of exaggerating, but they were just, people had bigger marketing budgets. IT was making huge money in
Been through a couple of recessions.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the internet means everything's sharpened up in the market. But they still exist today. And when we look at, we had a group of us that were taken very kindly to go skiing this earlier this year. And, we got the Exertis Express where we take people away. And so, these things happen. I think last year a group got taken to Silverstone where they managed to hit some good KPIs and targets. So they're fewer.
But they're still there.
And they're really important because that's the time where, you really connect as a group. And not just sales to sales, but MD, sales director, salesperson, sales support, whomever. They're all a very important part of the machine, right?
All cogs in the machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So, one thing I want to ask you, we've spoken about the sales floor and the culture and everything that we're very proud of and that you brought over from Hammer into Exertis Enterprise. What would you say, as a sales floor, what is the unique selling point of Exertis Enterprise? What is different about our sales reps compared to other disties?
They're sales reps. Mm-hmm. And I tongue-in-cheek a little bit. It's really funny. I don't know whether people that work for other distributors would disagree. And they certainly have divisions that are more like us. But they are built to be logistical machines. Mm-hmm. You can order online. Things come out very quickly and automated, and you don't necessarily have to talk to someone. And the sales rep is there to be supportive and deal with customer service issues and those kind of things. And these distributors do that very, very well. There's nothing wrong with that, and they're hugely successful, and some of them at gigantic scale compared to us. But I don't necessarily even term us a distributor. I term us a solutions partner that operates at the distribution tier, because we are direct with our manufacturers, but we attempt to, and our sales approach is definitely to understand the customers and then try and give them what they need, not necessarily what they tell you they want. By utilising knowledge, by utilising our fantastic commercial department, right?
It's the technical knowledge and expertise that they have themselves as well as being able to lean on commercial. Definitely. And the vendor, because we've got good vendor relationships.
We have great vendor relationships, and I think if we can say to a customer, oh, okay, you're operating in this market, you're currently using this. Did you know this is available? We've got a new CPU technology coming out that could improve your systems. If you move away from tier one and look at tier two, we could accelerate your applications whilst being more commercially viable, and actually trying to be an extension of their business.
Yeah.
You know, our best customers are the ones where what we supply them is a critical element of their business, as opposed to, and we do play in that area, resellers. You know, we play in all sorts of areas, but that concept of we sell it to them, they sell it on, is less common than our customers that are utilising our solutions and products to provide a product, a service, something like that. So, you know, those customers want that additional help. They want that additional support. They know that they're not just looking for a part code and a price.
Yeah, box shifting.
Definitely. So I think we're massively unique. And it's really funny because that was always the approach with Hammer. And I think where our competition are getting bigger and bigger all the time. You know, TD Synnex, huge scale, 70 odd £billion business. I think that niche area where, you know, think about it yourself, Laura, sometimes you could go online and get help, but do you know, sometimes think, I just want to talk to someone.
Yeah.
Right. That's
to a person that's got the knowledge.
Yeah, and just get a two-way conversation to answer my questions, not fight with a bot. That's who we are, right?
Yeah.
So it's not for everyone. 90% of people might want a bot, but the 10% that want to talk to someone, that's where we're unique.
Yeah. Fantastic. And it's that all-round service as well that we offer.
Definitely. Yeah, end to end.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've talked a lot about Exertis Enterprise. We talked about Hammer.
Yep.
We talked about your career. So the next little section is just a few, I won't call them silly questions, but getting to know Jonnie as a person, not
find
a sales
out if I'm
manager.
interesting.
It's fine. I mean, it's very interesting what we've spoken about so far. But let's get to know a little bit more about you and Jonnie outside of work. So you've made it to the end of a long week. What does a good weekend look like to Jonnie Ray?
Probably different to if you asked me 10 years ago.
Okay, let's have both versions.
Like anything, I think, you know, 20s and 30s, a good weekend before I had children and stuff was going out and partying all weekend. If I'm honest, you know, I used
Basingstoke based?
Normally up in London, actually. But yeah, I mean, you know, enjoying the fact that I was probably earning some money and I didn't have responsibilities and a family. And so, yeah, I let my hair down at the weekends. So much so it's gone completely.
You let it down too much.
Yeah, let it down too much. But it's different now. You know, I've got a son who is, you know, obsessed with football and has been since a young age. So my weekends tend to be seeing my girlfriend and taking him to football and more football. And
does he play as well as?
Yeah, he plays Saturday, Sunday, and then obviously trains during the week. So both Saturday and Sunday throughout September to May is football. Sundays I run the team, so kind of have to be there. Although I wouldn't miss his matches anyway. And then obviously mixed with lots of other things. Like I say, seeing my girlfriend, I like going to the cinema. Barbecues with friends, seeing friends, you know, I do all sorts of bits. I play golf, I'll go to the gym, I like my wakeboarding. So, you know, I am, you can probably imagine knowing me a bit. If I'm sat down for more than half an hour, it irritates me.
You?
Yeah, it does.
Got to be doing something.
Yeah, and I've got my dog, so I walk my dog and, you know, I'll go out on my bike and I'm definitely if I'm in bed past 8 in the morning, I get antsy. I need to get up and
need to be up, need to be
seize
moving
the
about,
day.
Seize the carpe diem.
So, exactly, yeah. So very football related my life outside of here.
Yeah. Would it be football related even if your son didn't have an interest in football?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that has come from you then. That
do you know what? It's really funny. I've never sort of. You think. And I never have forced him into football. But I think it comes from the fact that his dad likes football, so he got into football, right? And then it goes from there. So, but, you know, the team I run, this will be my under 6, under 7, under 8, under 9, 10, 11, 12. This will be my 8th year running that team. Wow. So the fact that we've got 16 children now, because it's moved to 11 aside. So, I mean, it's a big undertaking. That, you know, there's evenings where I'm planning training and running training and then planning the matches and, you know, organising the kits and it goes on and on, actually.
You get the time.
Well, that's it. You know, and I find time because I love it. But I love, you know, I get to really spend my time being a part of my son's passion, right? So you find the time.
Yeah.
And you know, outside of that, I of course like watching sport, football, obviously, and F1. I like the racing. So they're all very sport-related weekends, I would say.
Yeah, it sounds like a very sporty weekend. Next question. This could go anywhere.
Okay.
What would people be surprised to learn about you?
What would people be surprised to learn?
I'd say you're quite an open book.
That's it. I'm sure there's something. I should have prepared for that one.
I didn't prep you for that one, sorry.
I guess when I was younger, I worked in Toys R Us, so I've got many pictures of me in my blue Jeffrey waistcoat.
Iconic.
Which is iconic, yeah. But I guess probably people would be surprised to realise that outside of the office, I am very laid back, I think, because I'm not in work. But then I suppose when you've had 5 days of being on everything,
on it all the time, you need that time to be laid back.
My girlfriend says I'm spaced at the weekends, and I think I've sort of said it makes sense to me because I turn my brain off.
Yeah, you have to.
But outside of that, I don't really have many things that I don't share. Like you say, I'm quite an open book.
You're quite an open book. Although I'm sure there must be a picture on the internet somewhere of the Jeffrey the giraffe.
I've got pictures,
waistcoat.
and I'm still in my nice NHS glasses and
amazing,
looking good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
If that's on the internet somewhere, I challenge you. Anyone watching, find it.
See, I'm enough of an open book. I'd send it to anyone.
Just email Jonnie.
When I got married on my stag do, it was we had a stag do in Holland, but I got married in Thailand, so we had another stag do in Thailand, and they got me a sarong and a white T-shirt with that picture of me in my
amazing
Jeffrey waistcoat on it. I've still got that T-shirt.
Amazing. Hopefully we'll see it in the office one day.
Yeah. Problem is I make everyone wear a collar. That's my excuse for not wearing it.
Damn. I think it would be good enough to just justify one day.
Let's change that. I don't make everyone. I suggest that I would like them to wear a collar.
Suggest that everybody wears a collar. Okay, so who has inspired you? You've spoken about a couple of managers and stuff.
Yeah.
Who's inspired you most in your career?
Look, I think it's probably a 101. I can't remember what Scott Padwick said in his, but I think definitely Paul Matravers, who was the old sales director of Hammer. There were, him and James I worked with a lot. James was the MD, but James was off being MD and, sit in his room looking at numbers. He'll kill me for that as well. But yeah, I think Paul definitely had, he was a great businessman. He did it with a fire, a passion and enjoyment. You couldn't switch him off. He was always doing stuff. You thought you had a great idea and he didn't, he'd talk to you and he'd make you realise maybe often it wasn't a good idea, but then he would, he'd listen and he'd explain. So definitely him.
Yeah, fantastic. So a couple of questions to finish with. What would you say you are most proud of in your career to date?
In my career, I would say I'm most proud of the fact that a fair few people that I've been a big part of developing their careers now have wives and houses and good lives. And, I think just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I got invited round to one of theirs they were having a team barbecue. So they said, do I want to come along? And I'm thinking, I remember you when you were 16 and, you,
just a kid.
And now look, you've got your house and, got a nice car outside and, all these lovely things. So I think through it all, I could talk about a million things I'm proud of, but actually when you sit back and see that and think, he's done it, but I've been a part, I've helped him,
being part of people's career journeys.
Definitely, life journeys actually, more to the point.
Yeah.
Career journeys is a part of that, but, I think most of my staff I've worked with over the years would say, if you've got a problem in that, outside of work, I'll listen, I'll help. So I definitely see it as helping their lives, of which the career is a part of it.
Yeah, and I suppose work is such, you spend 5 days a week, you see your colleagues more than your family a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't know it.
Yeah. So it can, I suppose, sort of feel like a bit of a family in that sense, and you develop those relationships and you're involved in each other's lives and everything. So yeah, that's really special. So it's your biggest achievement. What has been your biggest challenge in your career so far?
I would say 2 that you could probably link together. I guess that thing that I've talked about of that realization that you have that light bulb moment when you realise you don't know it all. And you don't have all the skills and you don't have all the answers. That's what makes you exponentially better as a businessman, I think. And I think initially the difficulty is that you don't want to show that you don't know or you don't understand because you think it shows weakness.
Yeah.
And I think the quicker that you can mature to realise it's a strength, not a weakness, and people see it that way.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity, yeah. So I would say, my biggest struggle has been learning to realise my flaws.
Okay.
Is that an all right answer?
No, that's a good answer. I'd say that's a very good answer. It got deep very quickly.
Yeah.
It's good though, because then recognising flaws or things that you struggle with as opportunities to
fix
improve.
them and improve them. Yeah.
Exactly that.
Exactly that, yeah.
Great lessons for life. What's the most exciting thing you're working on at the moment, or what's on the horizon for Jonnie?
What can I say on camera?
We can cut it.
I think that I don't want to say like AI and all that, because the reality is that's just one thing, and it's a loose term that everyone keeps throwing around. I think what I most exciting thing I'm working on is where we take this business across the next 5 years.
Okay.
I think where I sit there now in the position I'm in and don't look at this month, this quarter, but actually think, are we on the right track? Are we doing the right things? What's going to change in the market? Where do we need to be? I think having that foresight and trying to be a huge part of that development is exciting. So I don't know if that's a weak answer, but I think that is the most exciting thing at the moment. Where will this business be? Where will the world be? Things are changing so quickly in technology now, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's trying to find that mix between keeping on top of all of those changing things whilst actually not forgetting the fundamentals of who we are, have been, and will always be.
And that is an excellent note to end on, I think.
Perfect.
Jonnie Ray, thank you very much for talking to me today. I know you're a very busy man. Thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed the latest edition of Exertis Enterprise Unplugged, our Career Path series. Make sure you are subscribed and following along for what is next to come in the Exertis Enterprise Unplugged series.